tell my friends stand by me only if I'm right. I come out of triple darkness just to see the light. If I say it once, I guarantee I say it twice. If they want me, I ain't going out without a fight. In my dreams, I'm a killer, but for God, man. Try to play it cool, but it's getting hard, man. Rolling with the real and death to all the frauds, man. Not too many of me, yeah, it's kinda hard, man. In my room, sitting in my room. Know they waiting on me and I'm coming soon. Never been a sellout, never been a coon. Y'all be on the camera acting like I'ma show them how true and independent get it. Whole game changed by the time I'm finished with it. We about to get this business handled in a minute.
Welcome to the B2M Crew podcast, Boys to Men. We're 5 African-American men who have been friends for over 40 years, have a combined 13 children, including 12 sons, and been married over combined 100 years. And we say all of that to say that we're here to discuss parenting, some life lessons, some guidance about culture, and here to just bring you and let you into some conversations that we've been having since childhood into adulthood and grown men. We're broadcasting from the Code Building in downtown Charlottesville. It's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful co-working space. There are wonderful amenities, great rooms here in space for entrepreneurs to come in and get your business needs satisfied in this wonderful facility. We also have a sponsor today by Swift Transportation here in Charlottesville, Virginia. You can contact Swift Transportation at swifttransportation.com with a Y for all of your non-emergency medical transportation needs. To my right is John J.G. Yates.
What up, though?
You know, we got my man Chill Talik Wynn over here with the world's ambassador Waki to my right, and my man Jay Moo over there, brother Muhammad. Today, gentlemen, we have an interesting topic. I'm the Wave of Black, by the way, but we have an interesting topic that we brought. Everybody see my Virginia State University t-shirt on. John got his union shirt on today. We're going to talk about education, choosing schools and colleges. As you know, there is nothing more important than education for our young people. And we're not just talking about college and university. We can talk trade school. We can talk about programs, certificates, whatever it is. But, you know, we're talking about what things parents should consider when choosing schools and colleges for their children. And so I'm going to start this off by just posing a general question to the group. You know, what goes into your mind, Brother James, when you think about choosing school environments for your children?
I didn't think of it much at all until, again, I give much credit to my wife, looking much, a lot into that, because quite honestly, the American educational system is just really more of a killing field as opposed to one that nurtures what's within a child and to bring it out of them. You know what I mean? And it's gotten even worse than that, especially when you talk about their resistance against the critical race theory and stuff like, things like that. Whereas, there's an attack. And so I didn't place too much value in it. But even from elementary school, though, just trying to make sure my son went to a good school with regards to when they were putting grades and attaching grades or report cards to schools and stuff in that district or county. And so I did take a closer look as to see that, and to make sure that he was going to a decent school to where, the teacher, whereas a low teacher to student ratio, if possible, and just giving good quality education. And then, where it lacked, and we would just do at home and just make sure he was educated.
We can't let you get by. You got to elaborate on the killing.
Absolutely.
You just charged the American public educational system with being a killing field.
Well,
and everybody, for everybody's historical reference, in the Cambodian Wars, they referred to the killing fields where young people were actually dying out there as soldiers unnecessarily. So what do you mean by that, bro?
I mean, really, wherever it is, it's just not, they don't equip the students enough to prepare them for other than just training them to be employees rather than entrepreneurs and that sort of thing. Or even having so much of a European focus of the curriculum in education and not considering the entire world's view and where that's coming from, and just being so even American centric, rather, if you will. And it just doesn't it doesn't allow them to think critically, or more so to to be more critical thinkers with regards to looking at professors as if they cause it as if or they make it seem as though the professor is the end all be all, or the professor takes an attitude as if they're the end all be all, and not pushing the student or child to go beyond where they were and what they to the degree of what they had learned, and to take it even further in the sense of passing the baton and allowing them to grow and share their views, and so it just seems like it more so kills that spirit of education and drawing out. That's what education is supposed to be. It's supposed to draw out from within, within what you have within you, and draw it out to share with the rest of the world. So
Talik, what was important for you in terms of choosing schools for Tyreek?
Well, definitely, I pretty much let him, choose where he wanted to go.
Let's start with early on though, like elementary.
Oh, okay, and bring it up to college. Okay. Of course, like, live in the city, either you're gonna have your, wherever you live at in that area, that's pretty much the school you're gonna be in. And so one thing I did, always made it my business to drive him to school, because I wanted to put something in him before he get to school. And that was really one of my main things, just to be able to get in his head before anybody else could get in his head for the day. And then either myself or my wife will pick him up in the evening, and we also getting in his head and unpacking what he shared. But pretty much, we just went to wherever school that was in the area. And then, definitely when he got to middle school, I told y'all on a previous podcast, that was like a breeding ground for gang members, and we didn't know it at the time. And then I knew for a fact, when he, left the 8th grade, we was putting him in private school. So,
Wow.
Why private school?
Yeah.
Well, my brother has shared some things about private school to me, and I tend to like, okay, all right, he made me see some different point of views that I wasn't aware of. I knew that was one thing that my wife and I always spoke, that we was gonna put him in private school, but not sure if the funding was gonna be there. And I even challenged, at that time in the 8th grade, the funds in the early part of the year wasn't there, but a big, I got a big contract, with my company, and that money that I had allowed, me to just be able to do pretty much whatever we wanted to do. And I went to her, I said, baby, we've been missing some vacations, some trips and stuff. And I said, you know what? I know we said we've been praying about him to go to school, but you know what? Maybe we need to hold off. She was like, no. We're putting him in private. That's what we said. And that was the best thing in the world.
So I know you living in Atlanta area right now, and not to put you in a beef with Killer Mike, but you had shared the video where he was on the Breakfast Club recently, beefing with Envy, and basically I'm paraphrasing, and if I got you wrong, Killer Mike, you can hit us up, but sounds like he was saying, if you send your kids to private school, you selling out.
We selling out.
I mean, pretty much that seemed like what he was saying. So what are your thoughts about that?
First of all, I'm gonna ask him, what is a sellout?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because if you look at my son and what he's done in a short period of time, what part of that is selling out? You know what I mean? My son, wrote a book when he was 14 years old, graduated college debt-free. And not only that, my son bought a property, cash money, and bought an investment property, got a tenant in it, and he's still living at home. And he making money, and he worked for iHeartRadio. So what part is that selling out?
Hey, how many years did he go to private school?
4.
Okay. Was it the high school years, the middle years?
High school years, 9 through 12.
Scholar, you paid for that.
Paid for it. My wife and I.
approximately, you know how much it costs? Approximately.
This
whole
cost,
lot.
yeah, costed us about $1,000 a month.
However, I would say this, we talked about last episode. Tariq had worked so hard where he got a scholarship.
Right.
Full 4-year academic to college, right? That I know is worth at least $100,000. So even if you spent $30,000 or
Right.
$40,000, you still winning, right?
Investment, yeah.
And yeah.
John, what
And get,
about?
hold on a second.
Go ahead, bro.
And based on you know what I share my and what my wife and I share with our son, Killer Mike, I'll be a sellout all over again.
I hear that. I hear that. And John, what about you? Like, what things are important
Sell out.
for you in terms of choosing school environments for your children?
Money. Nah, obviously it's more than money. It's a fit. It's the fit. Money is a huge part of it because I get frustrated with the business of college, right?
Right.
In the economy today, right? In-state public university is going to basically run you $100,000 if you get out in 4 years, combined with the cost of living, etc. A working class person cannot afford to say that, especially if you got 3 kids, 2 kids. That's very difficult, right? However, it's your fit, right? It's the culture, right? It's the cost because you don't want to be stuck years from now. You don't want to pay $100,000 to get a $40,000 job. That math don't add up, right? And a lot of kids think that they're going to immediately get that $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 job right out of school. It normally doesn't work that way.
Right.
Getting it now though.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
and but it also is fit. My oldest son got into a school I wasn't really happy about. I was happy that he got into any school, because it's a win, it's a victory, regardless of what school you choose. That was a phenomenal fit for him.
How come you weren't happy about it? What didn't you like?
It was a school in a rural area. I didn't think culturally, being a young black man in that area is going to be a good fit. However, the school was a lot more diverse than, and again, we in Virginia. It's a lot more diverse than Tech or UVA, the bigger, well-known schools. And it was big enough to have a large student body, but small enough where he had smaller class sizes, which he really needed.
Okay.
And it worked perfect for him.
Yeah.
My other son wanted to get out of state. He didn't mind staying in state, but he just loved the beach. And so I'm like, you're not going out of state. Unless you get a scholarship and go wherever you want to go, right? But if we have to pay for this, you have to go to an in-state public university. It's simple as that, because the tuition,
family business decision.
yeah, exactly, absolutely, absolutely. And we found a program that allowed him to get in-state tuition out of state, which allowed him to get that.
Oh,
But it's important, and so those things are important. And just going back to my family's pathology and history, right? We talk about me and James, our great grandparents, right? Granddaddy taught himself how to read and write, Grandma went to school to the 8th grade, right? My mama had me as a senior in high school, barely finished school. I went to college, didn't finish up. Now my kids are graduating, so we're taking it to the next level each generation, right? But we still got to be smart about it, because now my baby boy is a high school senior. And ideally, you know what? I really want to be like, you need to do community college for 2 years. Then you can go wherever you want to go, because that's the best financial decision. But a lot of kids want that college experience, so they're not real mature enough to see the benefits of that in the future and save them money. But
that's interesting. Joaquin, what's your take, man? Because I know me and you had some shared experience early with private school choice, and you told a story actually when we did a more direct episode on education. But what's your whole thoughts about this whole take about the important things to consider?
Man, one of the fundamental things I used to always tell my boys in the household is that it was a little slogan that I got from my Uncle Tommy. I don't know where he got it from, but I got it from him. And one of the things he used to always say was, the A students teach the B students to work for the C students.
Yes, sir.
He used to always say that. The A students teach the B students to work for the C students.
Wow.
And what he was saying was, the A students, they go on to become be in academia. They go on to be professors and school teachers and that type of thing. The B students, they're the ones that get hired by these corporations. Well, nobody's really looking for the C students to do anything. So the C students are kind of left out there. And what do? They go on to become entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
work for themselves,
Yes, sir.
and then they hire all of these people with great grades.
Right.
You
I
know,
mean, when I got all of them C's, I should have been proud of myself.
extremely proud, extremely proud. So I used to, so with that premise in mind, I was never really tripping on schools for my sons. I always felt like, you know, you can be an entrepreneur. Now, here's what I do understand. In the system that's set up and the way things are set up now, I always saw college as no more than a ticket to an event. There, if you want to get in certain rooms, you may need a college degree.
Right.
If you want to be in certain environments, it could be helpful to have this college degree. It's a ticket. It gives you access to certain parts of the world that you may not normally get access to. But the thing that I always stress for my boys is you need to be a producer and you need to create for your own self. All right. And if you do that, you ain't got to worry about getting in the other room. They'll invite you in the room. You know, they'll invite
Right.
you.
Or you'll create the room.
You'll create the room or they'll invite you. I always told my sons I would be an absolute failure as a father if you ever had to fill out a job application. That's what I always told them. Now, whether that was true or not, you know, it remains to be seen. But I always told them. So both of them have only ever had, Darius had one job that I wanted him to get just so he would know how miserable he was. And so he would also know that, like, why am I going to go here and work for $8 an hour or $10 an hour when I can go out here and produce $400 an hour and a half? You know, so he understood that. I found Kari a job picking weeds out of a lady's garden. He lasted 2 days. So after that, he was like, Dad, please don't make me go back there. I said, well, this is what you're going to be doing. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, you know, no disrespect to anybody, but you're going to be picking weeds out of somebody's garden, or you're going to be cleaning up for somebody, or you can be holding the street sign. No disrespect to anybody, because there's honor and dignity in all work.
Sure.
So, but if you don't want to do that, then you have better come up with what you're going to do. And so when it came to schools, public schools, my kids were in public schools in the beginning. And I remember when Darius was in 3rd grade and you had Amir at Peabody, and you was like, hey, man, you should think about, you know, bringing your boy over here. I was like, hey, I heard you.
And Peabody's the private school.
Peabody is one of the private schools in the area. And I was like, yeah. 2-3 years later, fast forward, we have a situation with schools and classes and grades and all that stuff. And I literally rip him out of the public school, and we show up at Peabody like that day. I'm just like, here, y'all gonna have to take him. You know what I mean? Right. And man, they blessed us so much in terms of taking him, and just truly, you know, through your leadership, you know, our family was introduced to that school community, and we're still there. My wife is still a teacher there. And so Darius came as a 6th grader. He's 28 years old now. I came as a parent volunteer. I've been coaching the basketball team and the athletic director at the school.
He's the first black male to finish.
Yeah, he was the first. He was the first black male to actually graduate from this particular private school. I think Amir was the first student.
Well, he didn't finish though.
Yeah, but he was the first male enrolled.
He was the first male enrolled.
Right, and then our son was the first one to actually graduate from Peabody. Yeah. So I used to always tell my boys, like, whatever school I'm sending you to, I'm not really worried about your education. All right, I'm not really worried about that at all, because me and your mama, we gonna educate you. Right. All right, we gonna educate you. All right. I remember when he came home, and you know, he was spewing some stuff about Crispus Attucks in the 3rd grade, and the teacher was kind of giving him a little bit of grief because they won't really. That ain't what he was supposed to be saying based on, you know, what they were teaching at the time. And so I always thought, we gonna educate you. But what I do want you to do, wherever environment we put you in, it is very important for you guys to build relationships with these people. I'm not sending you to these schools to learn math. I'm sending you to these schools to meet these people, meet these kids, because these are the people that are going to be the leaders in the community one day. They're going to be running businesses, and they're going to be the entrepreneurs that own all of the facilities that you see around you. And so I want you to understand that that's what I'm sending you into these environments for. I'm not worried about math, and we got that covered, okay? But if you go into these environments, this is what I really want you to learn.
Hey, well, and clarify for some folks what you mean you're gonna teach them at home. Because some people just think like homeschooling, but that's not what you're referring to.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna teach you pride. I'm gonna teach you to be prideful. You're gonna be educated. We're gonna teach you how to read. We're gonna teach you math. We're gonna teach you all of that stuff. We're gonna teach you your history, love of self, pride, all of that stuff that you need to be a well-rounded, upstanding citizen in this community. That's the stuff I want, a true education,
Right.
a love of learning. That's what I want you to get from this household. So now when you go into the school, whatever they're giving you is just a bonus. That's how I felt about it. So as a result of that, when Darius was on one track, and I had one son that actually went to college, and then I had another son who didn't go to college at all. He might have took some classes at the local community college, like for a semester, but that wasn't working out. And so he did his thing. So
I think, man, it's so much. And for the audience, I spent almost 30 years in the education field as a teacher, as a monitoring schools, as a principal of a school, and currently do some work in the central office in a large school district. It's so much I want to say. It's so much. But I'm going to start with, I'm going to turn it up a little bit because I know all of y'all got something to give me on this stuff. But James said public schools in America are killing fields. The first thing I'm going to say to parents about choosing school is you are 100% wrong if you send your child to school and they don't know how to read when they get there. You're failing your child. And they might recover, but you should be ashamed of yourself if you can go and make sure they've got fly Jordans on at 6 and all of these things, and you have not made sure they know how to read when they get there. Because what we call the achievement gap happens between kindergarten and third grade. And then they playing catch up until they get out of school. And if somebody doesn't come rescue them, you're leaving your child in an education experience filled with frustration, lack of critical thinking building, of everything, because you didn't sit down long enough to read Cat in the Hat books, or Dr. Seuss is canceled right now, but in case y'all didn't know. But 3-letter word books, man, and you don't have the time to sound out basic words, you should be ashamed of yourself. And I'm just going to say it just like that. And if you don't know how to do it, you go find somebody else, just like you go find a person to get them whatever else they need.
But we know all the Tupac's lyrics, though.
We know,
Right.
a little baby and all that, right? And the other thing is, in terms of the killing fields, man, what was important to me initially in our own education field, we know as a black or brown or poor white child in this country, you are not going to be given a fair shake in the public school system. The system is not designed to elevate you. It's designed to get you through with compliance. Right. But what was important to me, because I wasn't worried about the education side, except that they were challenged to the maximum ability. And that's what's not happening in too many public schools. Is Waukee, is Talik, is John, when they see the gifts that you see at 2 and 3 years old in the house and the brilliance, is that brilliance going to be fed and challenged by people that care? Right. And that was why I was seeking private school, because I was in the public school system.
Yeah.
And I was a teacher, and I know what was happening to the average child, right? The child that wasn't tracked and identified as being bright. And so when I went to Peabody, when I went to the public school fair, private school fair here, I was like, I'm looking for a challenge. And I shout out to Harriet Kaplan at Peabody, the founder, because I was like, I want my child to be challenged. What do y'all do for, y'all got any black children? She was like, nope. But I'm going to be honest with you, we want them.
Yeah.
We want you, right? We want them to come over here. And so my child took an assessment. You had to take an assessment to get into Peabody. But I was there because they believed in challenging students at whatever age to the maximum capacity. So I was willing to take my 4-year-old son, who was going to be the only black male in that building, and put him in that environment because I wasn't worried about him losing his identity because I had made sure at home he knew who he was.
Right.
To the point in
Yes,
like
sir.
6 years old, they doing projects and making coins of famous American. He did a coin of Al Sharpton. At this all-white private school, right? And comfortable.
That was
I
Big
can
Al.
remember Al Sharpton, yeah. He's not on any money, but that's Al Sharpton. I'm putting him on my coin. So I wasn't even worried about the cultural piece because I already knew and that's the other thing. If you sending your child home to school to learn Black history, shame on you.
Yeah.
Shame on you. So what became more important was, is this institution challenging them?
Right.
And if they're not, I want to put them in a place where they're being challenged. And then the last thing with college, I got a story I want to tell quickly. I went to Virginia State University, undergrad, and Hale State, by the way, and for grad school. But let me just say this, man. The reason why I want to shout out a brother that we all know in this town, right? I want to shout out Steve Ivory.
Yeah, the
Bam,
good Steve.
right?
Oh yeah, cool.
Steve Ivory,
Bam.
in my opinion, was the one Black person I knew that had selected a HBCU that was close enough to me for it to matter. Right?
Oh, wow.
Steve, we lived in the same neighborhood. Family's like family to me, right? Like a big
Right.
brother. But my point is, when he went to Virginia State and maximized his college experience, he came back with his Omega stuff. He came to the high school we were at when we started Shout, and
Yeah.
he came in and talked to us about college and Greek life and all of that. Before that, my mentality about a HBCU was what most Black people growing up in the area like I was. I'm not going there. It's not good enough. Even though I didn't have the grades to go anywhere else, right?
Especially when we live in the shadow of the University of Virginia.
Yeah, exactly. He made it attractive, man. So I checked with my brother Rodney. So I went to a JUCO playing baseball, ended up getting hurt and not wanting to stay at the JUCO for a third year and wanted to transfer. My brother Rodney, man, when I asked him, he went to Virginia State. And so he went to Virginia State as well. And I asked him what made him want to go to Virginia State, because he had went down to Shawan on scholarship to play football, ended up getting homesick, came back home, worked here a year doing construction, and was like, forget this. I'm back to
Picking
the
up
job.
weeds.
He said, oh no, this is for the bird. I'm going to school. I said, why did you choose Virginia State? He said, man, I just knew they were gonna let me in. Because back then, HBCU was pretty much open enrollment, right?
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness. Yeah. And I said, but why Virginia State? He said it was Steve Ivory, man. That was the only thing I knew. Right, you know what I'm saying? And not only that, Steve Ivory, was a brother enough to him that his first semester, Rodney going down there, no bread, lost his financial aid because he had dropped out of another school, all of that. The only reason he went to stayed at Virginia State, he got down there with bags, nowhere to stay. Back then, brothers just show up.
Yeah, we did.
He called Steve Ivory. Steve Ivory moved Rodney into his couch for his first semester so that he could go to Virginia State.
Oh, wow.
And now he's a senior or something in college.
That's awesome.
He moved him into his couch, bro,
Wow.
and looked out for him. And Rodney said, you know what? As I reflect on it today, I talked to him this morning. He said, I would not have even stayed at Virginia State or finished and then now gone on to Howard to get a master's, now in a successful position were it not for our brother. So shout out to him. But
That's
what
awesome.
Virginia State did to me in terms of the HBCU college discussion is, that was the first time in my life that Black men that looked like me told me that I was great.
Wow.
That I had potential. That I was powerful beyond anything I could ever believe. And I believed them because it meant something, because they were so brilliant. I was like, why does he think this of me?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? And so
Yeah.
it was a cocoon of love that enabled me to transcend where I was headed.
Right.
And I'll forever be in gratitude for that, because that was a nurturing environment that I needed to grow into something greater than I was going to be had I not gone to an HBCU. And so I just had to
How
tell
was the
that story.
cultural adjustment for you coming from like Almont High School where we came from? And how was that? Did you have a big adjustment?
I didn't. I would have said had I not run into consciousness and studied Islam and read, y'all talking about your family and the Panthers. Remember when I got back from college, we was all getting together, building around knowledge.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
I got an admission to make, man. I'm sorry to the family, but y'all gave me the Bobby Seale book, Seize the Time. And you gave it to me to read, and I never gave it back. But because I ended up going to school, but I had the book, and like 4 years later, I said, where did I get this book? This is Joaquin book, right? But I don't know if you remember Seize the Time, Bobby
I do
Seale.
remember that. I do
And
remember that.
so I went on a knowledge band, so I was already culturally good.
Yeah.
But it would be a cultural adjustment to someone growing up
Huge.
otherwise, man, because it's a shock because everything we get is the white man's ice is colder. The white college is better.
Yeah.
You should be scared of those people. They wild. They from New York. They from wherever.
Even though all of our heroes come from HBCU.
All of it. Then you realize when you get there, the commonness and the sameness, and they appreciating you for you. And it was just a bunch of love, man. A lot of people I met from all over the country and different places, man. And it's just love and that commitment and that common shared experience. But in the early 90s, man. So being at a HBCU at the golden era of hip hop in the 90s, where you had professors sewing into me, made me into who I am today.
So how you help your boys make their decision? Because they all, well, two of them then.
Yeah, I was hell bent on all of them going to an HBCU. And my wife went to Virginia State. I met her there in English class. Her grandmother graduated from Virginia State in 1947.
Wow.
Yeah.
Her father went to Norfolk State. Her mother went to Norfolk State. Her sister went to Virginia State. So she came from a family of all HBCUs only, right? Coming from the Hampton Roads area. For me, I'm coming from a family that not many people even ever went to college, right? But for them, I was hell bent on them having that experience. But what happened was, back to I'm getting my Deion Sanders and Ed Reed on a little bit. I'm waiting on the scholarship money, man. Test scores in, they processing the scholarship stuff late. So we went down to Salisbury in Maryland. We live in Maryland now. They got the red carpet rolled out. This is how much money we giving you. We ready to go. I went in the dorms. I was like, man, Virginia State ain't got no dorms like this. These apartments, right? But so I ended up making the decision to he wanted to go there. And we was like, we tired of waiting. The week after we put down the deposit and all of that, Virginia State's right back. Your scholarship is awarded, all of this. But he was invested emotionally at that point. But
Wow.
But he ended up, and we've talked about this, being in a community of black folks that you have at PWIs that's tight knit.
That's true.
That people don't talk about that enough when they talk about the HBCU PWI conversation, because they're dependent to be a community and rely on one another. So he grew tremendously in leadership through that experience.
Yeah. And then your other boys.
And the other two went to Hampton. Of course I wanted them to go to state too, but Jeremiah had dealt with his injury, and I was like, well, where you want to go? I think I want to go to Hampton. I was like, oh my God, the most expensive one. But it worked out financially through some juggling and through some people we know. Shout out to Paul Harris, who was an administrator there at the time. I was like, look, the only way I can send the second one is if you let him live off campus with his brother.
Yeah.
So it ended up working out financially in that way. And I will say to this, they are strong, adjusted, focused young men that benefited from that cultural experience.
And just all of what you're saying makes me somewhat regret that I didn't push Caden hard enough to choose A&T when he went. Mm-hmm. And Steph will stay on me like that too. She's like, we should have really pushed him. Pushed him to go and go there, because we visited. It was a great campus, beautiful, and everything, man. But he just decided he wanted to go elsewhere, and it's like I wish there was more that I could. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that go back to that conversation we had in another podcast when I was talking about we become their consultants.
Yeah.
Right. We ain't telling them what to do no more.
Right.
You know,
Right,
we
right.
just like, yeah, this is what we want, but they're gonna do what they want.
And
What's
that's-
dangerous?
and
I'm
that's
gonna
what I
say this.
did.
What's dangerous though about this conversation about when we get into college about HBCUs and PWI, even private schools, is the climate in this country right now has always been bad racially. But right now, you talked about critical race theory, which is really essentially, for those who aren't familiar with the theory, is it's a theory, it's a scholarly theoretical finding or notion that racism sits at the intersection of every institution of America, systemic racism, and it's poisoning it, right? And something needs to be done about it. They're changing the dynamic to say, Derek Bell wrote that, right? It doesn't have, it's a law theory. It was about law. In education, people are saying now, based on that theory, they're saying we need to have culturally responsive schools. Nobody's selling critical race theory to be taught in schools. People are saying, keep in mind that that's a thing. And so you need to create experience for children that are culturally responsive, that cater to every people's unique needs and all of that stuff. But to that point, the climate is so bad, it's dangerous to send your children to some education environments in terms of their mental health right now.
Wow.
If they are not equipped, if Darius did not know himself, it would be dangerous to send him to Vermont. If Tyreek did not know himself, it's dangerous to send himself to a PWI where you can get lost and people caring about you, loving you, and really it's just not set up to cater to your growth and development. So when I was a principal in DC, we had a lot of students that be like, yeah, I got a scholarship to West Virginia, this small college in West Virginia, or this small college in Pennsylvania, right? Western Pennsylvania, Western Maryland. I was like, I used to tell the counselors, be careful about sending them into environments. These are inner city kids that have not experienced the sting of white racism. And if you send them there, it can be dangerous to their safety, to their freedom, and to a lot of other things if you haven't learned to navigate the troubled waters of being Black and minority in a racially charged environment. That's an important thing for people to consider.
Yeah, let me say something. When my son was in colleges, I kind of let him do his own thing, but one thing that was deep rooted in my heart, I did not want him to go to University of Georgia, And one of the reasons I went out there a few times to scout tickets and stuff, and just to move around, and I wasn't really treated really well, and I was like, my son is not playing football, so he gonna really get it.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Because they gonna love all on you. And, I mean, hey, the Bulldogs, they do what they do, and they well loved, but I was like, they not gonna show my son love, and I already knew it. And so he was like, Dad, I really
talking about Corey Brothers School, man.
Hey, I'm talking.
I know Tamik knew that, but let me just say
I'm talking
this.
about some serious stuff that
know.
a whole lot of
He
people
was
ain't
the
gonna like.
first scholarship Black baseball player at the University of Georgia, and they did a story on him about a couple of years ago because of that. Let me just say, you know what happened when he was playing in the outfield in the SEC? They was throwing chicken bones and bananas into the outfield and calling him nigga.
Wow.
Ole Miss.
And this wasn't in the 50s or 60s.
He was an athlete in late 80s, 86, 87, at the University of Georgia when Lars Tate and all them dudes was playing football around that time. So I hear you.
Yeah, and so
he was standing
Wow.
up.
So one of the things my son, he was going to school, and they had a excellent. I think it was something called Peabody or something, because they were doing something with the film production and journalists, and they really had something excellent. And I was like, man, this is gonna be good. And I was like, you know what, son, I'm not gonna push hard on you. I'm just gonna let him fill it out.
Yeah.
But when Georgia State wanted him, he was like, hands down, Dad, this is where I want to be.
Georgia State pretty much HBCU anyway.
For sure. For sure.
And so what I said to my son, I said, another thing, he in the heart of downtown Atlanta, and I'm like, I'm not trying to put fear in him. You know, my wife and I really not trying to put fear in him. And I told her, I said, he'll be all right. And the first day on campus, gunfire, you know, and we look at the news, and why my son reporting on the news? And my wife about lost it, right? You know, but it wasn't on campus, but I mean, you in the heart of downtown. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you ever been there, you moving about. I mean, you downtown. I mean, simultaneously, both things happening.
Yeah.
You know, you in the city. But anyway, man, shout out to Georgia State, man.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
my daughter's alone
very-
too.
What do
Yeah.
y'all
Very
think,
proud.
Joaquin? What are your thoughts about this whole? You know, one of the things. The other thing I would say is it important to know your child as opposed to know where you want them to go and what public opinion says about where they should go to school? You know what I'm saying? Or
Hey,
what's popular?
Yeah, we was just talking about engineering your child versus
Shepherding.
shepherding, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so we sometimes want to engineer them because we want them to be a certain way, right? When realizing they're born with their own DNA, they born with our grandparents, our cousins, our uncles, etc. They their own person. And going back to when I was talking about the pathology of the education of my family, and I'm pretty much I got it right. But the first college graduate in my family went to St. Paul's,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Next
Shout out to
college,
St. Paul.
exactly, St. Paul.
Now
Shout out.
closed.
Hey, Dr. Umar trying to get it reopened.
Uh-huh.
And I might get the order wrong. Then my next cousin went to Morgan State, and then I
Okay.
had one cousin that went to JMU back in the day. So they were the first ones.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it's more to making you a success than the finances. But my cousin who graduated from St. Paul is hugely successful, you know,
Right.
financially.
Mhm.
So fast forward, then their brother went to Maryland playing football, right? And then I had another cousin went to all through sports though. When Firm was a JUCO, went to Firm, went to Canadian League. And my uncle went to Firm, played ball, hurt his knee. And my cousin, two-time, shout out to Tony, two-time Central Virginia Player of the Year, sit out a year and got a scholarship to Union, right? And I'm like, man, you sit out a year and still, you know.
Yeah,
still
I
got
was about to
ride.
say,
Yeah.
yeah.
Coach Joe Taylor back in the days, and he came home, you know, girlfriend stuff, right? So I say all of that to say, and when I went to Union, I was like, that was the first time you said you had teachers that really cared about your success. That was really, that you never experienced in high school. You never had nobody push you and challenge you with love.
Right.
You know what I mean? Instead of you just a number in the classroom. And the other
Miss
thing,
Garnett love me.
yeah,
Loved us.
yeah. I mean, how many black teachers did we have at Albemarle? I can't think of any that I had, and as a
two
as a
or
core
three.
class, as an English, a math,
Nah,
or-
you
or
had
history?
you
I had Miss We had Miss Hughes.
Miss Hughes.
Yeah, we
Miss
had
Hughes
Miss
wasn't black.
Oh no,
Yes,
he
she was.
who? Miss
Yeah, Albemarle.
Yeah.
Miss Reynolds.
Miss Reynolds,
yeah, Miss Reynolds.
I don't
We
know.
started African American
Miss
lit
Jackson,
class.
but when none of us were in Miss
Yeah.
Jackson class.
But even that, so I went to a JUCO, got put out the JUCO, right, playing ball, and then I was like, but before that, I'm sorry, let me go back to this. On high school, we went on a recruiting trip to A&T, and they was playing FAMU, man, for their homecoming, and the Aggie Angels was showing us around. I had never seen 25,000 black folks in a stadium like that.
Right.
I was
Ever.
like, yeah, never. Everybody having a good time. There's food, the sound, the smell. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just, I was
The
like,
energy, everything.
I'm going to school. Right? I'm going to college now for sure. Grades terrible. Right? Now I got to go the JUCO route, and didn't even realize I was at Last Chance U. You know, until now, you know, at Last Chance U up in West Virginia, right? And
They
again,
had some cultural stuff going on up there.
that
too.
was, hey, look, that was 15 years, you know, 20 years prior to from where we're from. But anyway, man,
I just want to say the brother admitted that he got put. I just want to say it was over tuna fish.
Shout out to Tuna Fish.
Hey, man, you can't take my food, man. That ain't happening. Yeah. But anyway, Corey, just think about, man, I'm gonna brag on you, man, and just think about like, man, you got your bachelor's, you got your master's. I'm telling you, business, you about to finish your doctorate sometime soon. Man, what do you tell the people that knew Corey from elementary and middle school in high school would believe
It was a bully.
yeah.
They say he was a bully. I'm
Yeah,
just
Yes,
learning
sir.
that.
and made a career in education, and a damn good one, educated at that.
And I would say that I'm grateful to Miss Sampson, who was a librarian at Greer Elementary School. The late Miss, I think she's still. I'm not sure if she passed or not.
I
But
think she's still around.
Okay, she's a librarian at Greer Middle School, and was stern, right? And the teacher, I told that story. The teacher brought us there and was like, "Watch him, cause I'll be cutting. You know, we all cutting." And she said, he gonna be all right." And she asked us to read, and she found out I could read, and pulled me to the side and said, "You better get 3 books every time you come to this library. You better read my books."
Wow.
And from that point on, I got 3. I wasn't even doing work in class, but I was doing them 3 books and going back. So the literacy skills I had, and then I was blessed to get to Jack Jewett that had Miss Geraldine Robinson, Pete Robinson's wife.
Yeah.
Derek, Derek was her son, and she was a black English teacher. And Mr. Wilson,
Yeah.
Bean Wilson.
Yep.
I had them 2 English teachers in middle school.
Okay.
And so, and they believed in me, you know what I'm saying? And so even though, the literacy skills, that's what I'm saying, it's about the love. Because I could read anyway. But the love of somebody just telling me you're better than what you're showing.
To challenge you with love.
It really put me, like I had terrible grades and believed I was going to be as wildly as successful as anybody. I had terrible grades, but I knew I was literate, man. That's why I stressed
We all
that
thought
reading.
Yeah.
That reading earlier, but and then when I got to Virginia State, I had a professor that saw me write and said, "Come to my office." He said, "Look, not many people like us can write like you. Don't you never forget that." So I went and joined the newspaper staff.
Wow.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's the love, man. And back
And then
to
we
the
end up
statement that
having
we
a
all make.
newspaper.
Anybody that won't treat you right can't
Won't
teach
teach
you
you
right.
right. Yes,
And
sir.
so they used to say, with our parents were coming out of integration, you ain't got to love a child to teach them. That's bullshit.
Right.
I'm not going to learn from you if you don't love me. And so if your child, I don't care if it's a diverse environment with a bunch of white teachers, because I've taught and been a principal in D.C. and had some white teachers that love those children to death. That's the only reason you come on East Capitol Street if you white, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't that they needed love from a black teacher. They needed love from somebody that cared about them.
Yeah.
And so that's the environment you need to find for your child. Go look for the love. You know what I'm saying?
That's
And
heavy.
that's
Yes, sir.
really important.
That's huge, man. When you talking earlier too about folks that go to the PWI and finding their community. My lady always talk about that. She went to VCU and talk about the community that they had. You said they always felt like they had like HBCU within them.
My wife went to JMU, same thing.
And so when you are looking at these PWI schools, be careful, because sometimes you see the minority rate, right? You be like, wow, that's 20% minority. That's pretty diverse. I always go by black folks. We about 13% or so, plus or minus of the country, right?
Yeah.
So that's my barometer. If it's 13, however, sometimes you see that 20 number, and we 4%. And then you look at the football team and the basketball team, but they go 150 brothers right there on the football team, And so it's not as diverse as what you so look into the black number, and that's a whole nother conversation about to get into a cat checking others, 'cause I think that's hurting us, because we won't check another. Because when somebody see you out in the world, you are black. That's no disrespect to your white parent, right?
Yeah, to make because
But just look at that, and again, look at some of these schools and really dive deep down into what you're getting into.
What's your thoughts about people focusing on college when college might not be for your child?
Well, I can really speak to that because, I had one son. I used to always say, I got your, it's your job to come up with plan A because I have your plan B. So whatever you say that is. So when Darius said he want to be an entrepreneur, we're going to go on that route. And you don't have to get a college degree, but let's go ahead and make sure you get one. Just because you may need it to open some doors for you later on down the road. Well, my youngest son, who came to me and was like, I know what I want to be. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I want to be a professional Call of Duty player. Well, the ironic thing is he was offered several college scholarships to go play video games in college because all these schools have started esports teams. But that's how much he was against going anyway. He was like, I'm not going. He was like, they can offer me all the scholarship they want. They can have that. I ain't writing no paper. I ain't doing nothing. This is my profession. And so I remember when it was time, when Darius was coming along, I wanted him to do what I wanted him to do. Man, I wanted him to do what I desperately wish I had the opportunity to do. You know, you got an opportunity to go to University of Alabama, one of the biggest programs at the time. It's 2012. They on the verge of the heyday of national championships and be a walk-on, just to sniff a piece of that. You know, I wanted him to be a part of that so bad. And I got to come to terms with the fact that, this is what he wants to do. And he didn't want to play football no more. He wanted to go up to Vermont somewhere and play basketball.
You ain't want to go play for Joe Taylor, man.
No,
Over Nick Saban.
Because I had played for Joe Taylor. That wasn't that special to me, even though it was.
It Hall of Fame coach Joe Taylor, by the way. Shout out.
No, that was special.
AD, man.
That was special. But I'm like,
I know.
Nick Saban, Alabama, national championship. That's what I'm seeing. You know, but all in my foolishness, you know. But I remember when I went to his school, private school, so everybody going to college, all this stuff. And we go in and we sit down to talk to the counselor. And from the time you start in ninth grade, they give you a packet as a ninth grader. And it's every single step all the way up to senior year to what you're supposed to be doing and where you're supposed to be at until you graduate to go off to college. And I remember when we had our meeting with the counselor and I went in, I sat down with her, me and my wife, and she was like, okay, what are you guys thinking? And I literally said to her, I don't care. I don't care. It's up to him, And she was like, oh, thank goodness, because all these other parents are coming in here talking UVA and Harvard and Stanford and all this stuff. That counselor was the first person to say, well, Darius is good in business. They had this excellent program where he could get a master's and all this stuff at Alabama. That's how Alabama even came up in the first place.
Okay.
That's how it ever came up. And so then once I know, and then he got accepted, I'm like, oh, this is lovely.
Yeah.
Now, this is awesome. This is not even anything I was even anticipating. But once she said that and talked about the program they had, I was like, this would be great for him. Turns out, that ain't what he wanted to do at all.
Wow.
He wanted to go play basketball. And I had to give him space to make that decision. And that was my growth.
Right.
I had to grow up and allow him to make that decision. My bad, Chill.
No, you good. I think for instance, I think you need to, parents really need to pay attention to their children, you know what I mean? And watch them move, because sometimes you might have to guide them in certain areas, right? And so I remember my son said that, he was like, Dad, I don't know if I want to, finish school or whatever. I said, well, what did you say you wanted to do? He said, journalist. I said, well, you finishing, period, point blank. No questions asked. I need you to be the first one in our family, in our immediate family, to get a degree. Now we got, family members, cousins, brothers, nephews, but in our immediate family to get a degree. And if that's what you want to, do, we're going to make sure it happens. Even if we got to come out of our pocket, if we have to
Why
pay
was
for
he
something.
thinking about not finishing?
That ain't never crossed my mind.
It didn't matter.
It didn't matter. You know what I mean? Because I'm like,
he's raised with a different
it was
expectation.
it's so important in just day to day that we break these cycles of generational curse that's going on in our family. And so I was like, nah, this is what you gonna do. And I remember after he got his degree, he was like, Dad, I kind of feel like it was a waste. And I was like, why you say that? And so, we was coming from Virginia, we was heading home, and he shared with me, and I was like, man, look, don't you, I was like, back to what he said, this is a tool, right? I say, when people try to challenge you that you ain't qualified for the production company and stuff, like, you ain't got to ask for permission. You got the paperwork now. You know what I mean? These are the credentials that you got for the family business, and we could, and plus all this you to learn. And he was like, now he's like, yeah, you're right, Dad. Now I really see what you was talking about. But sometimes we got to
Yeah,
point
that
some
goes
things
to
out.
my man Inky Johnson's quote about never falling in love with the outcome. It's about look at who he had become
Right.
going through the process of getting a college degree. Look at the man he had become, all the skills, all the knowledge, all the expertise that he had developed. It don't matter whether you're going to use it to go to CNN and work for them. Okay,
Right.
you know what I mean? Just because you're not going to CNN and take your talents there, don't mean it was a waste. Look at what you become, and now he producing our show here as we sit here. So
Amongst other things.
Yes,
amongst
sir.
other things, yeah, exactly.
Hey, yo, I'm gonna do a shameless plug real quick. I was earlier talking about the finances of education.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I was telling my sons, in-state public school only. Union is private, right? I said, I love Union to death, but we got to look at in-state public. But now Union has adjusted their tuition where it's basically the same as state. And if you're a Virginia resident, there's a lot other money out there for you now. So don't cross that off your list because it's private. Folks, look into that.
Yeah.
But going back to your question too about trade versus education, right? And when we educate ourselves, what you talk about, man, reading, right? If I see something today, let me read about it, right? I took my son on a visit to VCU, and he wanted to be in the business school, right? And so while we were down there, we ran into, they have a real estate major, they have an insurance major, et cetera, right? And I'm like, wow. And I was like, I don't have a bachelor's. I have my real estate license, right? I have my insurance license, right? And I didn't have to spend $100,000 to get that knowledge. So go and get that knowledge on your own. Read it. It's there. And so you don't have to have an associate's or bachelor's, but you do have a thirst for knowledge and to know how things work and want to know how that works. And so going into some kids, college ain't for them, and that's fine. We as a community sometimes look down on the trades. So one of Isaiah's buddy, smart kid, good kid, is I don't want to go to college. He went to DC to learn to be an electrician. So this was maybe about 5 years ago. He was getting paid $20 the hour while learning the trade. So I don't know how long the apprenticeship lasts, 3 or 4 years, but he's going to be making $70,000, $80,000 with no college debt, right? Getting paid to learn. And so now when we talk about entrepreneurship, hey, young man, now go to community college and take a class on marketing, take a class in accounting, take a business class. Now you can start your own company and be an electrician, be a plumber, and have people work for you, work for yourself, then have people work for you, right? And still had a big house, the nice car, and be able to take care of your family, because that's what it's all about. And one more nugget I just found in Virginia, might not be new to everybody else, is the apprentice school at Newport News, right? Same thing. You can be a plumber, a welder, electrician,
Carpenter,
right?
all that
And
stuff.
yeah,
Brick
you
mason.
can get paid, right? And you're gonna learn the trade. You're gonna get a job, right? And they got it where if you want to play ball, I can still play football. I got a basketball team there. So they even have those opportunities. So again, at the end, sometimes we tell our kids, man, we got to make money. We got to take care of ourselves first so we can take care of our family. And there's more than one route to do that.
Man, a great TV show to speak to that is a show called Blue Collar Millionaire. And it's showing dudes that got $20 million houses. They've been super successful. And they started laying asphalt.
Yeah.
They started a recycling business. You know what I mean? All of these things that and we have to expose our kids. And the message I want to leave everybody with on this one in particular is your level of exposure will determine your level of success.
Right.
We have to make sure we exposing our kids to as much as we possibly can. We want to expose them to, so whether it be being an electrician, being a carpenter, going to college, being entrepreneurs, whatever. And I think that's why we are having the show that we have right now, because our kids are on the whole spectrum there.
We used to do that. The Latino community is killing it in those areas and starting those blue collar businesses. Right. And we used to do those. Why do you think we got away from it? Pride.
People.
I think
that's a whole nother
the industry and the
about,
economy changes. So, just like you transition away from the Industrial Revolution and then it become an information age and everybody's like, you got to go to college to get this information. And so that just became the standard and what was being sold. And then the commercialization of higher education just took it to a whole nother level. And now I think we as a society and community is kind of maybe rethinking that now. And looking at all that we have.
HVAC, electricians, plumbers, people who build homes, right?
Beyond that, let me say this as we close, right? 2 things. Yes, we need to find out if children like trades and give them the same support around pursuing them that we would if they were going into education. But let me just say this. This is the value of an education. I can leave my current job right now and easily go into 6 or 7 other fields and go get $100,000. When you learn that trade, if you don't continue, and that's the thing, you can't say go to a trade and you just a lay plumber the rest of your life. You need to continue to educate yourself as a plumber to the point where you own the plumbing company.
Correct. Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Then
Because let's be
taking
real.
the
I know
class
for
here,
me, I ain't about that physical labor like that for 40 years. I'm not about that life.
I'm definitely not about that.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So,
He hands
but
is
that's the
smooth,
difference.
baby.
So dudes can say you can make 50,000 as a plumber. Sometimes I be like, yeah, but my back good. I mean, I'm just saying. So that's real, right? And the other thing is we got to stop just talking about plumbing, HVAC, and all of that when the new industry is coding and computers.
Yeah.
Those are the new tech programs, cybersecurity, that are out there that
Robotics.
are available. A young person can go get a cybersecurity certificate in 6 months and go make $80,000 to $100,000 right now. And then for all the trades now, it ain't like back then they didn't use math and computers and all of that to do these trades. But now, even if you're a plumber, you need to know algebra.
Yeah.
You did. So what I'm saying, so you can't say bump school, he gonna go into a trade. He still gotta push himself in that trade to become what they eventually gonna be.
It's like a pro athlete, right? You got a window. And so we know some old cats that did hard labor their whole life, right?
Yeah.
But again, if you educate yourself, learn that trade, then you can
You should be
grow out into your
evolving.
own.
Because if we're lifelong learners,
Right.
you should be evolving in whatever you do. So just to remind you, back to B2M Podcast, another wonderful episode talking about choosing programs, schools, colleges, whatever, just supporting young people. We're here at the Code Building in Charlottesville, one of our sponsors. Today's sponsor also Swift Transportation, Swift with a Y, transportationbout.com if you got family members with non-emergency medical needs. Another great talk, fellas. Joaquin, you got something to take us out with?
Yeah, like always, in the words of the great Frederick Douglass, it is easier to raise strong children than to repair broken men.
Yeah,
right.
each one
Peace.
teach one.
B2M.
B2M.
And I won't stop until I'm winning. I'ma show them how true and independent get it. Whole game changed by the time I'm finished with it. We about to get this business handled in a minute. And I won't stop until I'm winning. They don't want me in the office cause I